like to call to order the February 6th, 2024 regular meeting of the East Lansing City Council. At the opening, could we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Altman.
Here.
Councilmember Meadows.
Here.
Councilmember Watson. Mayor Pro Tem Singh.
Here.
Mayor Brookover.
Here. Item 1.2 is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes, motions for changes in the agenda at this point?
I'd like to move approval of the agenda except moving item 3.6 to business as item 4.9 and substituting a revised resolution celebrating Black History Month as distributed this evening for item 3.2.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. The agenda is approved as modified. Item 1.3, we have 3 sets of minutes in front of us tonight. Mr. City Attorney, can you remind me, is it legitimate for us to pass all 3 at the same time, or do we have to do each individually?
It's at the discretion of the council.
Okay.
I'll move all 3.
Is there a second? Mr. Altman? Second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the January 20th, 24 meeting, the January 23rd, 2024 meeting, and the special regular council meeting at November 2nd, 2023. Any questions? Ms. Watson, we're moving the approve of the minutes? You okay on those?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. It's passed unanimously. All written communications received by the council are posted on the online agenda packet if you wish to check. We have some folks that want to talk from the audience. If you haven't filled one out yet, please fill out one of these blue slips and get it up to the front here. First one I have is Arthur Slabosky.
Good evening. My remarks are directed principally at our mayor, Mr. Brookover, in response to things that he said at the council meeting 2 weeks ago in the context of converting Hagedorn Road. First, I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for using the preferred terms for traffic signals as opposed to the word lights, which can mean a lot more things. You're the only member of council who used the proper term. But mostly, I want to address your description of traffic speeds in the city. I watched the live stream and had to wonder whether I was living in the same city. Here's a quotation from you at minute 2:38 of the January 23rd meeting. I did this as verbatim as I could, close enough. I've lived with Abbott Road. I see no difference with the diminution to 3 lanes, and it is still effectively a racetrack. We have an enforcement problem. I think that speeds on all these streets are way too high. Every street that he, meaning Councilman Alterman, named, where we have done these projects, it may be other factors, the speeds are horrible. The speeds in downtown East Lansing are horrible. The speeds in front of People's Church, where you were trying to merge into the configuration, are horrible. The speeds on Michigan Avenue are horrible. We need to have better enforcement. I know we can't have better enforcement until we have more police officers. I get that. End of quote. Now let's get real. All day car traffic crawls up Abbott Road from the signal at Albert to the one at Bircham to one at the library and then to Saginaw. And north of Saginaw, trail users can stop cars on Abbott with a push-button signal. These are all good things. On our downtown campus business strip on Grand River, cars move so slowly and have to stop so often that drivers who head to and from Okemos use Saginaw Street, even though the distance is longer. And maybe we're talking about Albert Avenue downtown. There's no way to gather up speed with a stop sign at every block. At People's Church, the merge situation prevents drivers from reaching significant speed. and there's no difference with the converted streets. I use the newly built bike lane on Abbott from north to south of Saginaw by bicycle hundreds of times a year. I know that there's a difference. For one thing, with one through lane in each direction, the speed is controlled, or you might say enforced, by the slowest driver. And just what is better enforcement? You can enforce a speed only when drivers exceed the limit, not because you don't like it. And should we lower speed limits? The state won't allow you to have a speed limit lower than 25. That's the speed limit on the streets that I just cited. And what level of speed do you want if it's way too high in so many places? Every location has to have an acceptable, reasonable speed. Without speed, nobody gets anywhere. So let's just look. What is wrong with slashing speeds on our arterial streets, even if you can find enough violators? Mr. Meadows hinted it at the last meeting. He said that drivers would not cut through neighborhoods in response to the Hagedorn conversion because that just takes too long. That's true for this project, but it doesn't mean that nothing you can do will cause cut-through traffic. If you turn our major streets into speed traps, drivers will cut through neighborhoods to save time and money. That is an effect that we don't need or want, and we should avoid. That's my comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Christian Grant, I'm sorry.
Hi. So I am here because I feel as though it's incredibly important that the East Lansing City Council reintroduce a ceasefire bill and vote to pass it or a support of a ceasefire. We have basically stood here for the past 4 months as nearly 30,000 people have died and 1.9 million, which is nearly all of the people of Gaza, have been displaced. And our government is currently, our national government is funding it. It may seem like an international issue and not an issue for East Lansing, but throughout history, there have been countless genocides, massacres, and killings, and afterwards, people have looked around and asked, how did this happen? Why did this occur? And part of that reason was because the people that committed it didn't feel as though there would be anyone who would stand against them while they were doing it. That's why it's important for us as human beings to call for an end to death when we see it, no matter what level we're at, whether we're a powerful organization such as a local government or just a person. No one has ever looked back at killings that they could have called to an end for and regret it. And you know, no one has ever looked back and regretted not letting deaths continue to occur. So that's why I call for a ceasefire.
Thank you for your views tonight. Ken Tiffany?
Traffic, East Lansing, horrible, way too high, more police enforcement. That's kidding. In our lifetimes, traffic fatalities across the nation have been reduced by 50%. People call traffic science junk science. It isn't. I've studied it, I've done it, I've saved lives. So what you said was to create anger and fear in the people. That's what politicians do. Don't be a politician. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Fred Fritz?
I live on 238 Clarendon Road, which is here in Glen Cairn. In the original R1 zoning petition that went around, the north side of Clarendon Road was included in that, and subsequently through, I was told, a decision made by city staff, all the houses on the north side of Clarendon Road were removed from the possibility of the R1 zoning. So I am asking if there would be a process or an opportunity in this process for homes on the north side of Clarendon to petition to be included in the R1 zoning, because our neighbors on the south side of the road are. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Steve Whitty?
May I hand these out?
Sure.
Sorry, turn fast out.
Council members, my name is Steve Whitty from Netterveld. If you remember, a couple weeks ago, I was here with Jason Barris from American Gas and Oil regarding the renovation or proposed renovation of the University Marathon 100 at 100 East Saginaw. I did send as a result of the last council meeting, we did send an email with the modified plans to staff just recently, requesting that rather than approve the denial of our application, that the council reconsider the denial, review the revised plans, and approve the plans, or at a minimum, reconsider and table our request for further discussion. I realize that with the approval of the minutes that you just did, well, we probably can't have a dialogue tonight, but I still wanted to mention this to you. What I handed out to you is the modified plans, and I'd like to tell you what the owner was willing to modify. So as a result of the comments received at the last council meeting, the owner was agreeable to adding additional green space along the clear vision corner. So the pavement area has been reduced, and then the pavement has been pulled further off the intersection. A retaining wall and a screening wall would now be proposed that is approximately 4 foot further south or 4 foot further off the road than the existing, our opinion, ugly 4 foot retaining wall that's in front of the existing building. The new wall would have been faced with stone, so it would have been attractive. And the added wall would allow all of the existing grading inside the clear vision corner to remain, and then slightly berming above and beyond that. And the top of the elevation of that proposed wall could be adjusted, but what was stated on the plans I just handed out would be that the elevation of the top of the wall would be approximately 861 or higher. And then note that the elevation as the cars parked under to fill up their fuel would be at approximately elevation 856. So the top of the wall would be 5 feet higher than where the cars would fill their gas tanks. So in all, the added wall would have provided sufficient screening for the site. In addition to the wall, the proposed shrubs and trees that were previously proposed would remain in front of the wall. And then lastly, the council had asked about EV charging stations. So the owner was willing to add an EV charging station as well as a second EV-ready parking space to the site. That's all noted in red on the plans that I handed out to you. A few other things, as I had mentioned a couple weeks ago, that in my opinion are very important keys to the project. First and probably foremost, the gas station and car wash already exist on the property. So this was not a new proposed use to the area, and the car wash would actually have been removed as a part of the project. So the proposed request had actually taken away one of the approved uses that have already been at the site, namely the car wash. As mentioned before, the existing building currently has a 4-foot concrete wall in front of it with no landscaping. The proposed wall that is now proposed would be 4 feet further off the road, and landscaping would be provided in front of that new wall. The front edge of the proposed canopy would be approximately 33 feet south or further off the road than the existing concrete wall at the site. The project would have eliminated the northern drive entrance off of Abbott Road, which in our opinion would greatly improve the safety of the site. The project meets all of the zoning ordinance standards regarding setbacks, parking, architectural design, screening, and no variances were requested as a part of this request. And then lastly, the adjacent buildings are all set further off the road than what our site is proposed at. So that was why we were hoping to get your approval from a couple weeks ago, and why we were hoping to have further discussion tonight or at a subsequent meeting. As a part of the email that was sent to staff, Jason Barris, who is the president of AGO, had written a letter. I don't know that I can read it in 50 seconds, so I hope you got a copy of that. If you didn't, we can definitely forward that to you or ask Landon or staff to forward that to you. Again, I realize that you can't take action on it tonight, but since I came out here, drove out here, I wanted at least to address you and give you the information in front of you. I will be around throughout public
30
comment, but then
seconds
I'll
remaining.
probably leave. But if you have any questions on me, about the project for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And I really appreciate your time considering this request and these 5 minutes you gave me tonight. So thank you again.
Thanks for coming. Sally Newton?
Hi, I'm Sally Newton. I live at 939 Sunset Lane. Last week, the Planning Commission voted 6-1 to recommend the approval of Ordinance 1528, a request for Glencairn residents to establish R01 rental restriction overlay with consideration to expand the proposed boundaries. What an opportunity. I appreciate your time and consideration for this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Francie Freeze?
I'm Francie Freeze. I've lived at 924th Street in East Lansing for 48 years. I want to say I totally support the rental restriction overlay for this wonderful neighborhood, but I have a problem with it. I'm not included. I want to be included, so I'm here to ask that you will expand the boundaries that stop on Sunset. These are the east side boundaries that stop on Sunset and have expand North Lawn down to Abbott and Center Lawn down to Abbott. Please help us keep this neighborhood as it has been for so long and do not let any more rentals in. Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks for coming. Do we have anybody in the queue?
There are no callers in the queue.
Okay. Moving on to communications from council members. Ms. Singh?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to reference that about a week from now will be the one-year anniversary from the tragic events that happened on campus at MSU and to our community. And I just came from the University Student Commission meeting, and there's a number of really valuable resources the university is offering. So I just wanted to point you all to the Office of Support and Resources. I think I have that wrong, but it's not right in front of me. But it's online. There's a number of events and resources, including here at the Hannah Center during the day. There'll be events and service projects for folks to participate in, and I know MSU staff gave the team here at the Hannah Center a great compliment in being so supportive throughout everything the community has faced, now coming to a year ago. So wanted to mention that to folks tonight, and then I will conclude with that topic. Thank you.
Ms. Watson?
Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk about some things in no particular order. I just jotted down what I wanted to remember. First of all, I got an email from East Lansing Public Library, and they are doing some cool things, in my opinion, for Black History Month. One of them including like an ode to hip hop. And so just encouraging everyone to just kind of check out some of the things that they're talking about and doing for Black History Month. Since I've been at council last, whatever Tuesday it was, I was able to meet with the Public Works team. It was something that Ron Lacoste, had invited me to, and finally I was able to make it. I met the team there and just got to hear about the work that they're doing. And so just if you all haven't been out to Public Works, please go out to Public Works. And I also just want to acknowledge, with my background in public health, I work for public health. One of the first reasons public health came into fruition historically in America is because of poor sewer systems and how we understood that impacted our health. And so just appreciations to the Public Works team and what they do. Next, I wanted to appreciate the person that brought up the ceasefire resolution, and just I relate to what you're saying. And the same week that council considered the ceasefire resolution, San Francisco and Ann Arbor passed a ceasefire resolution. And so thank you for coming up and speaking to us again. I will revisit what the person said about the marathon gas. I was one of the people that was in favor of it in the first place, but I'll just pick up the pieces and just try to understand what else is within for you all to do and what else it possibly is that council can do. Because just kind of like the person said, it's a messy place right now, but it's great to get gas from there. Yeah. Next comment, this is in relation to the Black History Month resolution. I wanted to thank you all for adding it to the agenda and just also uplift the draft that was proposed didn't speak to our own history in the city of East Lansing, which I am proudly a part of as a Black woman, being the first elected Black woman and the third Black person ever to serve on council. And our former mayor, Ron Bacon, was the first Black male ever appointed to serve as mayor for the city of East Lansing. And so I think that the historical reference, not just because it's about me, but just for our community to know that we're making history here in the city of East Lansing on and around everything else that Black people have contributed to. But sometimes there's an erasure of our presence, and stories are told too much about white people as opposed to the contributions of BIPOC people. And so just happy to be here on Black History Month. And so the next thing and final thing I wanted to talk about, council has talked amongst ourselves in like emails about the draft agenda that goes out. And I think it would be beneficial if all of council could see the draft agenda on Thursday with changes that were made or not by Mayor Brookover, by our mayor. It will help with transparency to be able to see what's happening with the agenda, be able to answer, and then also for all of us to be on similar grounding as far as they say the mayor creates the agenda. Is that right? Sorry.
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah, like it creates the agenda, but I don't think that should mean that you or any mayor should be the only person that sees or adds or takes things off. I think all of council would benefit from seeing the path of the draft form, any changes made by the mayor, and then, just watch the process of the final agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Meadows.
A couple of things, I guess. One, just to bring to the council's attention that, and the public, that the Tri-County Office on Aging, the administrative board there, is now headed by two people from the city of East Lansing, our wonderful county commissioner, Irene, and myself as vice chair. She is the chair. And I want to also mention that in terms of the resolution celebrating Black History Month, I hope that in the future we also make reference back to the prior actions of the City Council, which in 1963 established a Human Relations Commission, and on April 8, 1968 adopted the city's first comprehensive fair housing ordinance, and on March 7, 1972 enacted, I believe, the first municipal civil rights ordinance in the nation, which prohibited any person to discriminate against another person in the exercise of his or her civil rights, or to harass any person because of his or her race, color, or national origin. We've expanded on that over the years. We still have a lot of ways to go. We're not done yet, but it's important for us to celebrate this at least on an annual basis, and certainly 1 month is probably not enough. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Dr. Altman?
Thank you, Mayor. 3 items this evening. Some speakers made reference to the rental restriction overlay that's in process for the Glencairn neighborhood. And one speaker in particular mentioned that he's outside that proposed area and was asking about a process for being included. Just to summarize, the council has the authority to expand the boundaries of a proposed overlay district, and that would happen later. One of the items on the agenda tonight is to set a public hearing for that overlay, and that discussion would probably happen in context of that hearing. Normally we set a hearing by action of an item on the consent agenda. I asked for this particular hearing setting item to be on the business agenda because I will have some questions for our principal planner about the process of setting us up to have a discussion about expanding the overlay. We can't do that unless people in the areas that we're proposing to expand to have been properly noticed, and we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about how that notice is going to happen. So that's why it's not on the consent agenda, but on the business agenda. So at least I am thinking along those lines. Second item is I'm excited to see the new sound system on the consent agenda tonight, and I want to thank the city manager and city staff for their quick action on that. I think that having a setup where every board and commission member has their own microphone will make the board and commission experience a lot better for all involved. Not just because there are more people than you might think whose hearing is not quite what it once was, but also because some people speak really quietly. And so I think this is going to help in lots of ways, and I'm looking forward to haunting board and commission meetings myself and reminding people to use their microphones. And then the last thing I wanted to note, I sort of wanted to gauge the interest of my colleagues and perhaps others in the possibility of shutting down the fireplace in St. Anne Plaza downtown. That fireplace is something that has irked me for a while, and I think it's irked some community members as well. We're doing everything we can to try to reduce our carbon footprint, and yet we have this fireplace that is sitting there burning gas for no real reason, and has been for 10 or 12 years. And the reason I ask now is that apparently there's some masonry work that needs to be done on that fireplace, and the DDA is soliciting quotes for repairing the masonry. And so I thought it seemed reasonable to ask now, before we spend any more money on that fireplace, whether there's perhaps some interest in shutting it down or replacing it with something else, perhaps a tree that could become iconic and suck some of that carbon back out of the atmosphere. But there may be other things that we could do there. So this is, I'm floating this now so that the members of the public and also my colleagues on council can weigh in if they want.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything to add tonight. City manager report?
I have one item, and that is I wanted to recognize and congratulate Annette Irwin, who has accepted the position as Director of Planning, Building, and Development. That's my only item. Thank you.
City Attorney report?
I have nothing to report this evening,
Okay.
thank you.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Mr. City Manager, would you read us the consent agenda, please?
Absolutely. 3.1 is approved resolution honoring the heroism of first responders and victims during the events of February 13, 2023. 3.2 is approve a resolution recognizing Black History Month. 3.3 was approve a contract with Bearstone Construction, LLC, for the 2024-2025 Miscellaneous Concrete Project in the amount of $90,000 and authorize the city manager to sign. 3.4 is approved street closure request for southbound West Road from the MSU FCU northernmost parking lot entrance that connects to West Road down to Greenstone from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. on Sunday, March 17, 2024, for the Ronald McDonald House of Mid-Michigan's Run for the House 5K and 10K. This approval is contingent on satisfactory administrative review and approval. 3.5 is introduce and refer to the Planning Commission Ordinance 1530, which would amend the zoning ordinance to make changes to items related to electricity. Specifically, the proposed amendments would clarify requirements for electronic display signs, set measurements, and fixture standards for outdoor lighting, facilitate solar power generation in East Lansing, and clarify requirements for electric vehicle chargers. 3.7 is approve year 4 of a 5-year contract with 100 Acre Woods in the amount of $97,480 for soccer field maintenance at the East Lansing Soccer Complex in East Lansing Hannah Community Center for a period of 1 year beginning April 1st of 2024, and authorize the city manager to sign. 3.8 is approve a license agreement with ENG Connection, LLC, for the outdoor patio area within the city-owned parcel at the northeast corner of Abbott Road and Albert Avenue for purposes of outdoor dining. 3.9 is consider the approval to purchase a sound solution through Telesystems in the amount of $45,584.51 for a portable audio system to support meetings at the Hannah Community Center and other city-owned facilities. And then 3.10, set a public hearing on March 5th, 2024 to consider a request to construct a single-story multi-tenant retail building with drive-through window and parking lot at 210, 218, and 224 West Lake Lansing Road.
Do we have a motion relative to the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Now moving to the business agenda, item 4.1, consideration of policy resolution 2024-3, canceling City Council February 13th, 2024 discussion only meeting and rescheduling May 7th, 2024 regular meeting, and also discussion of remaining February meetings. Mr. Bellman, do you want to talk about that, or do you want me to talk about it, or?
Sure. First of all, the canceling of the February 13th to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the shooting here at MSU, and the use of this facility that will be by and supporting students and residents during that period of time. But the idea also is to look at possibly Fridays or Saturdays in February to conclude our strategic planning process. So they open the floor to the council as to possible dates that would work throughout the remainder of February. I know the 27th, it's a Tuesday, is an election, so that's not available, and so that's the reason why we did not move the discussion only to that last Tuesday of the month.
And then can you speak to the May 7th meeting?
May 7th meeting is being moved to the following week because of the school election that's taking place on May 7th.
Okay. So, council, I had asked the city manager to expand this a little bit. So my thought is, because we can't use the fourth Tuesday because of voting for a discussion-only deferral, that, and given the fact that we are, have put together the strategic planning stuff, my thought for all of you to consider was to reschedule, and I would hope for maybe no more than like 2.5 hours for a Saturday morning for the discussion-only meeting in February to finish our strategic planning session. Now, I've asked Mr. Bellman if he can prepare what several people had requested, which is, I'm going to call it a distillation or synopsis of people's different choices. And so I just throw that out for the group. Mr. Meadows?
Unfortunately, I'm completely booked on Saturdays until the end of March. And I'm suggesting that, is there a possibility we could do this on a Friday instead?
Yeah, I think maybe then, given that, I would suggest we pass this resolution adjourning the meetings we have to adjourn, and then Mr. Bellman and the staff can start circulating some information with regard to who would be available when. So
Then I'll move the adoption of the resolution as presented.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Okay, let me just say, and I would like somebody to disagree with me if they think I'm wrong, but it just seems to me if we do this synopsis, this distillation, we should be able to finish up that strategic planning session in no more than 3 hours, and I would hope 2 hours. So that's sort of what I'm aiming for whenever we decide to have that discussion-only meeting. Does that seem acceptable? Okay. Any other discussion with regard to the motion?
Yes. Yeah. There was an email that was sent through about the May dates where I was reading it that council is being asked to attend 9 Tuesday city council meetings in a row. And so I did get an answer, but I didn't get a yes, that's right, or no, that's not right. And so I don't know, can anyone answer that for me?
Mr. Bellman, I think you responded, didn't you?
He did respond, but not with a yes, that's correct, or no, that's not correct.
I didn't count out 9 in a row, but there are 2 additional dates in April, the 23rd and the 30th, that were Tuesday nights that were being recommended for budget review presentation. So probably there would be 9 or thereabouts in a row. Some of them are your regular scheduled meetings, some are discussion-only meetings.
And I think Mr. Meadows had a response in terms of the deadline for the one part of the budget, which we didn't meet this last year, which I think informed your situation additionally, correct?
It did, and
If I may, to avoid this 9 meetings in a row, in the past, we also have, for instance, on an evening like this, we might meet an hour and a half previous to the actual scheduled meeting in a special budget meeting, so that we can get presentations from the departments with regard to their budgets, ask our questions, and that way we would just have those nights. So that might be something to consider as well.
Well, Ms. Watson, you may remember better than I do, but I think that's what we did last year, is we kind of doubled up on a couple nights into the budget thing at like 5 or 5:30.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like we changed it another way another time. My point is, so a couple of times this council has voted to adjourn past midnight, and I know we didn't reach midnight, but personally, as a mom, that is soccer and track season, and so the soccer games might not be on Tuesdays, but it's fatiguing to have to come to council 9 Tuesdays in a row intensely. And so my hope is just that we can be reasonable about the amount of time that we're being asked to return each Tuesday if this goes through, because we typically have 3 Tuesdays and then we get a Tuesday off.
okay, I don't think this motion, unless I misunderstand something, this resolution is not scheduling those meetings.
You're correct, but it adds it with the May 7th. With the May 7th edition is another reason why that makes it
Okay.
that it's consecutively happening.
All
So
right.
yeah, just a discussion point.
No, I understand. So, Mr. Bellman, I think you're starting to get a sense of the council's thoughts in this regard? And-
I am,
And so I think after we get through this particular resolution, if you can get with staff and figure out a methodology that maybe satisfies our needs a little bit better, and I would suggest that you and staff look at what was done last year, which was, I think, kind of consistent with what Mr. Meadows' experience was in prior years. So if you can get back to us on that, we'd appreciate it.
I can do that. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this motion? Do we have a motion? Okay, and we had a second? Further discussion?
And I'm just, for clarity though, I mean, just for maybe a third time clarity, this is only canceling or rescheduling these two meetings. We are putting off the rescheduling for
Correct.
staff to work with us. So.
Correct. Yes. Okay, all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, next item on our business agenda is item 4.2, consideration of contract with Iron Horse Excavating for the fiscal year 23 local utility improvements project in an amount of $3,650,000 and authorize the city manager to sign. Is there, thank you, sir.
Hey, good evening, Council. Scott House, Director of Public Works. Before you is a recommendation to award a contract to Iron Horse Excavating. This project is proposed to improve the areas of White Hills Drive, White Pond, Portage Path, Old Hickory Lane, Hitching Post Road, King Court, and Berkshire Lane. This will include water main replacement, road improvement, spot sewer repair, spot curb repair, and other miscellaneous repairs, that's totaling 1.3 miles. This was originally bid last year. However, the prices came in too high and included Stoddard and Melrose. We de-scoped the project and rebid it with this current scope. As you can see here, we have the bid tab with Iron Horse being the low bidder. This project is proposed to be funded from the sewer fund, the water fund, and the street fund. We checked into Iron Horse Excavation. They're a newer company. They're owned by a disabled veteran. They have a history working in the area, and we received favorable results. As part of this contract, we'd like to add a 15% contingency because whenever we go underground, we run into issues. It's approximately 15%. Part of this project, should we run into any lead and copper or lead or galvanized service lines, those would be replaced as part of the project. Also, as part of this project, once this contract is awarded, we would initiate notification to the neighborhood, start setting up meetings with the neighborhood and with the contractor to establish expectations during construction. So that's the project in a nutshell, subject to your questions.
Any questions for staff?
Scott, you're digging up the streets?
Yes.
In all cases. Berkshire Lane has utility poles. I think it's the only street in this set that has utilities, and it's only one block long. And so I'm wondering whether there's anything we could learn by treating this as a pilot project to bury utilities.
What I would recommend is award this current contract, and we'd work in parallel with the Board of Water and Light to have that discussion, because that is a very small block.
Yeah. And that seems to make it a good candidate for doing something that we could learn something from.
The one challenge I would have is that would not be eligible costs from the utility funds. I would have to get a cost and come back to council with a plan of action. So I don't want to speculate then, but it might have implications for the general fund.
Yep.
Other questions for staff? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that City Council approves a contract with Iron Horse Excavating in the amount of $3.6 million, the construction of the fiscal year 23 local utility project, and authorize the city manager to sign.
$3,650,000.
So if I make
650,000
Mayor-
there, 650,000 there. Pretty soon you're talking real money.
There was a typo, and the heading was 365, and the recommendation it's 3.6 million.
Oh, so we just saved $50,000?
You did. It was
Oh, okay.
great. It was
There
very,
you go.
very efficient. So it's a typo on our part, so I
All right,
apologize.
So that's your motion?
Yep.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Meadows. Any further discussion?
I think it would be great if we could do this as you suggested and try to treat this as an opportunity to get the ball rolling on burying utilities. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4.3, consideration of recommended amendments of the Historic District Commission bylaws. And I just want to say to staff, or to council, I had actually thought this was a different item coming from Historic District Commission. You've read the materials, and this is a fairly simple change to some of their bylaws, which they're required to look at. So this is kind of my fault. But go ahead, Landon, please.
Excuse me. Thank you. The Historic District Commission reviewed their bylaws. They do so annually, and had reviewed their bylaws in February of 2023 and proposed several amendments, but we had a tumultuous year last year, and they never made it to council. So we have 5 proposed bylaws changes that the HDC is requesting council approve. I'm happy to go through those if you'd like, one by one, or just take any questions.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Meadows, seconded by? Second by Singh. Any discussion? Mr. Altman.
I have a broader question about Historic District. When I first saw the agenda item, I sort of also wondered whether this was maybe something else coming through the pipeline. And so I may as well ask it now. One of the issues that has sort of come up as we start trying to encourage residential solar is in historic districts, I believe that adding solar to the side of a roof facing the street would run into problems. Do we have a sense of whether that's something that we can amend locally, or are we at the mercy of the state?
I think that we could amend our guidelines locally. I'm not sure that we'd have the interest among the current commission in doing so. Generally, the Historic District Commission reviews any changes to the exterior of a property that are visible from the street. So the amendments that you introduced this evening, consent agenda, contemplating solar panels would not change that requirement, that solar panels on the front being visible from the street would still have to go to a Historic District Commission if they were proposed in a historic district. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure I'm understanding.
It does. I guess my question is, if somebody proposes solar panels in a historic district for a part of the roof that faces the street, would that even be, is that something that the Historic District Commission could even authorize under state law if they wanted to?
My understanding is yes.
Under Act 169, I think that it is something that they are obligated to consider because it is front-facing to the street, but it's one of many factors that they review. So it's not prohibited, as I understand it, but it is just another factor. And I think if it's authorized by our local ordinance to have them in that location, it likely would be persuasive to the commission, perhaps.
And with the ordinance we just introduced, it's going to make it easier to contemplate those sorts of panels, correct?
Larger amounts of them, yeah.
Larger amounts of them, okay.
Generally, the intent with the solar amendments, I guess the portion of the amendments that deal with solar panels would generally make it easier to install solar panels and larger solar energy systems, but it wouldn't change anything as far as a historic district review for panels proposed in a historic district.
So I think, I don't want to take us too far away from the topic here, but I think it would be helpful to have sort of a formal opinion perhaps or assessment about what would happen if somebody in a historic district wanted to put panels on their roof, on a segment of the roof that was forward facing. What can they expect in terms of process and possible approval? Sure. Because I suspect that question is just going to start coming up more and more.
I hope so.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion or questions for staff?
note that although the word formal opinion was referenced here, that takes an entire vote of the council to ask for a formal opinion. I think an informal opinion should be sufficient to inform us on this particular item. So I'm just trying to clarify what we're going to be receiving.
Okay. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second, correct?
We did, didn't we?
Oh, do we? Oh.
That's why I'm asking.
Oh, I have a friendly amendment, that's why I was waiting. So we've moved and seconded?
I don't think we have.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't think so either.
Who moved?
So Meadows moved and Singh
Singh
Okay.
seconded.
supported.
Okay.
Thank you. I have a friendly amendment, hopefully. There is a his/her for gender inclusivity. There is a his/her that's in that. For example, it's on page 7, but under Article 6, Section 3, there is a number 3. It says applicant may testify on his or her behalf. My friendly amendment is, can we change the his or her references that might be in any other place as well as this one to their own?
Well,
Or can we?
I think we can only amend this one right now. so-
Or what I'm saying is, if I've missed another his or her reference, can this be gender inclusive, and can we change any his or hers in this to their?
In this particular document.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay.
Yes, that we're voting on.
So the maker of the motion,
If it's a friendly amendment, I accept the friendly
okay,
amendment.
the seconder admit,
Second.
okay. So it's been moved and seconded that the main motion is amended as indicated by Councilperson Watson. Is there any other discussion?
So Mayor, so under the Historic District Commission bylaws, it's that they make the changes, which I think they already made and approved and sent to council for review. So just from a technical aspect, I think it would be approving these with a recommendation that they further amend to make those gender inclusive changes.
All right. If that's the case, I am just encouraging all policies and resolutions to be more gender inclusive, and that we start removing and replacing the his and hers with something that's more gender inclusive. So, but I respect what you're saying.
All right, so I think we're back to the main motion. And Landon, you have a meeting, I think, Thursday night, and so I would suggest that you indicate to them for their agenda Thursday night to modify these bylaws accordingly Thursday night already. I think we can get
On
that
the agenda
done.
tonight.
Okay. So, I believe the friendly amendment has been withdrawn, and the second for the friendly amendment has been withdrawn. And so we're back to Mr. Meadows' main motion and the second on the main motion. Is there any discussion on the main motion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 4.4, set a public hearing for March 5th, 2024, to consider Ordinance 1528, a proposed R01 residential rental restriction overlay district for a portion of the Glen Karen neighborhood.
The item before you tonight is simply to set the public hearing date as proposed for March 5th. There have been some questions from council members about whether the overlay district as currently proposed could be expanded. And Councilmember Altman, you explained, excuse me, earlier during public comment that yes, the city council does have that authority. There had been some question about whether or not the public notice for the public hearing on March 5th, should you set that date tonight, could go to additional properties. And in your item tonight, I've included that expansion area. The notice language that we're proposing would include a mailer sent to all addresses within the current proposed overlay district, as well as the properties that were identified in earlier meetings. That would include a list of all the addresses in the current, a list of all the addresses in the proposed expansion area, and a map that would clarify where those areas are.
So for instance,
Yes.
I think you sent out the informational packet from a mailing list, which was very well done, and I got it twice. I got it at my house and also at my office. So I assume you'd just be using that same list to send everybody the notice?
That's correct. So we typically notice within 300 feet of a property. Because of the large area contemplated for this change, our original notice had gone out for 300 feet from the properties, including the overlay. What we're proposing, if we were to include additional addresses in there, would go beyond that 300 feet. So you'd probably be receiving 2 more notices.
Okay. So the lady that spoke to us tonight, that I think she lives on Forest, if I understood that, and that area around Forest and Sunset, they'll get this notice?
Yes.
Okay. And some of those houses, not hers necessarily, but some of those houses are already in a historic district?
In an overlay district, correct?
I'm sorry, overlay district, yeah, okay, all right. Okay, any other questions, Dr. Altman?
Just to be sure that I'm clear, so what I'm at least going to want to talk about is the possibility of expanding it all the way east to Abbott and north to Saginaw. And my hunch is that some of the properties at the very far corner are beyond 300 feet, but they will be getting the notices?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And then the other question I had is, what's in the notices? So if I live in that area and I get a notice that says something may happen to your property on March 5th, that's one thing. But if the notice says, here's what we're actually thinking about doing, and here's where you can look online to find the information packet that talks about what an R01 restriction overlay is, and that would be a different thing. So do you have thoughts yet about what those notices are going to say?
The public notice language, sort of for the current proposed overlay, says there is a proposed overlay district that means this for these addresses, or I should say bounded roughly by these streets. And then for the new notice that we propose to send out for your public hearing, in bold type, we added to that paragraph, there has been discussion of expanding this potential overlay district to include properties outside of the addresses listed above, including bounded by Saginaw, Abbott, Sunset, Clarendon, et cetera.
And then does that notice include the same informational flyer that we require petitioners to circulate when they go door to door looking for signatures? Or does it include a pointer to that?
The mailer that we're proposing to send out will include the notice language with all the addresses in both areas. The expansion area, so to speak, is in italics, just to clarify. The information sheet that we'll include with that mailer was sort of the infographic that we created, the 2-pager, which is different than what the circulators are required to circulate before a petition is signed. That's a 3-page sheet with mostly text. What we've been finding is that people have responded very well to the more graphically, friendly infographic that we put together. So we would include that, but not the information sheets.
But some sort of pointer or QR code or something that lets me know that if I want to know more about this, I can go to the city website and find it.
Yes. I'll check to make sure that our notice language includes that website, but that's the intent, yes.
I'm just trying to get as close to having the people in the expansion areas have the similar information that the people had when the circulators were going around door to door.
Absolutely.
Because that seems, we want everybody to be fully informed, and that seems like a good way to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll make sure of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
I want to clarify what we're doing here. So we'd be moving approval of the public hearing with regard to the current overlay district with notice to those properties already in this proposed overlay district and to those properties not currently part of the proposed overlay district east to Abbott, south to Center Lawn, and north to Saginaw, which are not commercially zoned.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and just to follow up on Dr. Altman's question, the content of that notice, that second notice, would be a little bit different to identify, to let them know that we may consider including their properties.
Yes.
Okay, I'm good with all that.
Any other questions for staff? Mr. Altman?
One more question. I think it would be useful to keep us from getting tangled up in our motions on March 5th to have some sample or example motions that would expand the overlays in particular directions that are simple but sufficient so that we can do that without getting confused. We don't need that tonight, but that's just a request for March 5th.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think we listed, even in the ordinances that we passed, by parcel number, so whatever we'd be adding, those would be listed by parcel number in that motion.
And I would just say for the record, for the benefit of the public, just because we're having a public hearing on March 5th, 2024, if this motion passes, doesn't mean we will necessarily vote that night. The public hearing does not require us to vote that night, so I just wanted to add that. Any other questions for staff? Okay. Did we have a motion?
I can kind of repeat what I just said, I guess. I'll move approval of the establishment of the public hearing with regard to 1528, ordinance 1528, with required notice to the current properties included in the proposed overlay district and to those properties not currently part of the overlay district in those areas bounded by Saginaw on the north, Abbott on the east, Center Lawn on the south, excluding commercially zoned properties.
Is there a second? Second by Watson.
I have a friendly amendment which is to include the date of March 5th, 2024.
Yeah, I thought that was it. Do we need to state the date? I thought that was
Let me
it.
just suggest something, Mr. Meadows. If you maybe could just say again 4.4, which includes the date and the ordinance, and then add the additional, I guess I'm going to call them conditions or notice things.
I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
Well, I think we ought to state this, so if you could, please.
Sure. Yeah, go back out of the report.
4.4.
Yeah, I'll move to set a public hearing for March 5th, 2024 to consider ordinance 1528, a proposed RO1 residential rental restriction overlay district for a portion of the Glencairn neighborhood, and to provide appropriate required notice to the properties within the proposed overlay district and to those properties not currently in the proposed district in those areas bounded by Saginaw on the north, Abbott on the east, Center Lawn on the south, and excluding commercial properties.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Watson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to item 4.5, introduce and refer to the Planning Commission for a public hearing to consider Ordinance 1529, a proposed conditional rezoning of 730 Grove Street for use as a Class B multiple family dwelling.
This request, it may sound familiar to you. There was a recent request for rezoning of this parcel to RM32, which was turned down by the City Council recently. The applicant is proposing to return with a request for the same rezoning, but make it conditional upon the use of the property as Class B multiple family, which is our current classification for properties that would be used as a bed and breakfast, which is the applicant's proposed use. So we're proposing to bring that forward to the Planning Commission for a public hearing and requesting you to introduce and refer the ordinance to them.
Any questions for staff? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Moved by Meadows, second by Altman. Any discussion?
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
That bullet that says, is that right, that it's supposed to say sing? Allowed a freestanding sing? Does that mean, is it sign?
I'm sure it would be meant to be signed, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
I see where, sorry, Councilmember, yes, I see what you're talking about, and that is meant to be signed in the ordinance language.
Any other questions for staff? Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 4.6, appoint a council representative of the Planning Commission's Master Plan Update Coordinating Committee. Do I have a volunteer? Or does the liaison, who's the liaison to planning?
I am the liaison, and I think they actually recommended the liaison be that person, and I'm happy to do that.
Okay, can we have a motion does somebody else want to do it? Do we have a contest here, or is Mr. Meadows walking himself into this one? Okay, I don't see a contest.
No, I was going to nominate my colleague to be the designated representative.
So a motion from Dr. Altman nominating Mr. Meadows for this task. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Watson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously, Mr. Meadows. Unanimously.
It's so unusual.
Item 4.7, consideration of resolution to approve the non-union schedule of benefits. Mr. Meadows, did you?
I do have a motion on this to defer this. We have an opinion from the city attorney indicating that the car allowances, which is what this really is about, need approval as part of an employee benefits program. We do have what I would call a partial response to a request that compares us to other communities, but it seems as though there's a lot more that we need to get from that. So I'm just suggesting that we defer this to the second business meeting in March and give more opportunity to get us a complete list of what everybody is doing on this. Hopefully with communities in Michigan that are similar size, other university communities in Michigan, and then Big Ten communities. Just make sure that we're competitive and continue to be.
And I take that then as a motion to defer until the indicated meeting?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion with regard to that? Go ahead.
I do have a question. Is council required to approve the schedule of benefits?
Yes. And there's a memo from Tony that indicates that.
And so, yeah, what we referenced in the memo and what our conversation has been in working with HR and the city manager is that the council does not have purview over specific like healthcare benefits. These are benefits that we've deemed to be a form of compensation. If it's a form of compensation, then that's when it would be required to be approved by council.
I thought the city manager had control over wages and compensation.
Wages and compensation, but not benefits. We have to approve those.
Any other questions? All those, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
didn't understand why you think we should talk about it a different day and not today, or
So that
approve
we
it.
get more information about what other communities are doing with regard to these type of benefits, car allowances. So you got a copy of Emily's, still working on it, basically, analysis of this, and I just want to give more time so that analysis can be completed.
Okay. And does that make sense to you, Emily, to delay it?
I could probably compel a couple more responses. I think there'll always be some communities that unfortunately won't respond or won't give me that information, but I can probably, with a little more time, would be able to get a few more than what I have now.
And would delaying be a problem in some way that, yeah, in any ways?
Not for me, no.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. And again, that would be the second business meeting in March, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure we got that noted. Okay, item 4.8, consideration and discussion of the appointment of Kathy Swedlow to the East Lansing Independent Police Oversight Commission. Is there a staffer that wants to talk about this?
I can talk about it. I can talk about it.
Go ahead.
Or-
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Council, after speaking as the co-council liaison for LEPOC, along with Mr. Meadows, we had some discussions along with the chair and vice chair because we interviewed a really great candidate, which is Kathy. And full disclosure and transparency, she's also married to Mr. Altman. And so for transparency purposes, I thought it would be valuable if we talked about her appointment and approved her appointment together.
And you still recommend her appointment, correct?
Yes.
Okay. City Attorney, did you take a look at this? Do you have anything to share with us informally?
Yes, I did. I have provided an attorney-client privilege memorandum, but on the record, I have reviewed this, and it is consistent with applicable charter sections and city ordinances.
Okay. Any other discussion from council?
Yes, I would like to ask my colleagues to excuse me from voting on this issue as allowed under the city charter. That is a decision for my colleagues to make. I am here to address any questions. Otherwise, I will be quiet during this discussion. Kathy's also here in case anyone has any questions for her.
Well, I'm just enhanced by the fact that you're willing to be quiet. So that was a joke. That was a joke. I think we actually need a motion in that regard, Mr. City Attorney.
Yeah, that's correct. So under, one second, subsection F of Charter Section 4.7, it's a council member may abstain by request to the council, and the council excusing him by a majority of the other members present.
Okay, I move that we excuse Councilperson Altman from the consideration vote on the appointment of Ms. Swedlow to the East Lansing Independent Police Oversight Commission. Is there a second? Okay. Second by Singh. Any discussion? All those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. That motion passes unanimously. Now, I think we actually need a motion with regard to the appointment.
I'll move to appoint Kathy Swedlow to the East Lansing Independent Police Oversight Commission. I think it's a full term.
Full term? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Moved by Meadows, seconded by Watson. Any discussion? All those in favor?
So I was
go ahead.
actually hoping to hear from council members to talk to the public because while legally, because this isn't a paid position, legally we can do this. but we're not just a council of attorneys. We are also thinking about the look and also the grayness of what it means to appoint someone that's married to someone else. So the nepotism law, or the nepotism resolution that the City Council passed last year was for me an acknowledgement that you have privilege that you're utilizing when there's not measures in place where I could get my child a job because I'm on city council, or that I can ask a spouse to apply for something or do something. That's this nepotism resolution, not saying it applies to this, but I just want to be transparent about the gray of appointing someone to a commission who is married to someone else. Because when we honor what nepotism, the problems of nepotism, and thinking about using our privilege or leveling the use of privilege, I was just hoping if other council members have remarks to share along those lines, that they will share it with the public, or just share it for transparency purposes on why we believe it's okay to appoint this person, and that we also recognize the grayness of this.
Well, I'll respond to that. First of all, I think it's okay for 3 reasons. Number one, you interviewed this person and recommended her highly. Number two, as I understand the nepotism policy, it deals with employment, which is where somebody's going to have some sort of pecuniary interest. And number three, I think that disqualifying a member of a domestic unit from some voluntary commission in our city council because the other member of the domestic unit may have some affiliation with the city is inappropriate. So to me, and I think it was very correct for you to bring it to us. Okay, I understand that, but I think in this circumstance, I think that it's entirely justified and proper. And in addition, I have enough confidence in Council Member Altman that if there comes a time where he has to vote on something that in some fashion is affirming or whatever of something the other member of his domestic unit has done in regard to the commission service, that he will ask for the same motion that he asked for tonight. So those are my reasons for supporting it. I think it is transparent, and that's what I'm going to say for the record. Anybody else?
I'll just say ditto.
Ditto, but I would also, again, say to Councilmember Altman, in terms of his high level of ethics, in terms of approaching that vote. And, you know, I think we're fortunate to have a person willing not only to volunteer for this board, that went through the process that all candidates were subjected to and came before this body, highly recommended by both people, both council liaisons, I think is says a lot, so.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Final item in the business section is what was previously designated as 3.6 in the consent agenda. Introduce and refer to the Planning Commission Ordinance 1531, which will amend the East Lansing zoning ordinance to align its rules for certain off-premises alcohol retailer licenses with those of the state of Michigan.
Thank you. I do have a motion on this to defer this also to the second business meeting in March. I'd like to request a city attorney opinion with regard to the necessity of this change. If there's a second, I'll explain why I think this would be useful.
I'll second the motion to defer.
All right. We passed this this language in this ordinance back when we were looking for some method of controlling the location of these two types of licenses, which are basically, we don't have any control. We can't say no or yes to these licenses, but we can say no to the location or yes to the location through the special use permit process. That was done with the full cooperation of the then city attorney, who issued an opinion as to how we could do this. And I recognize from the staff report that, we don't have a lot of these sitting out here available at this point in time. However, we have no control over what the legislature is going to do. We used to only have a few Class C licenses in the city of East Lansing, and now we have more and more. And so the increase in the number of SDM and SDD licenses that are available could happen at any one time. And I don't think we want Grand River lined with these type of licenses. So this has been very useful to us in the past, but this language does not say no to these licenses because we don't have the authority to do it. What it is designed for is to cite them appropriately with appropriate distances between them. And I just would like, before we move to remove this ability to do this, I'd like to have an updated opinion from the city attorney. So that's why I'm moving to defer it.
Okay, so do you have a specific date that you want to defer it to?
I mentioned the second business meeting in March.
Okay. And so as part of your motion that the council is also voting to request a formal written opinion from the city attorney relative to the issues that you raised?
I'm satisfied with an informal opinion.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Ms. Watson.
So I'm reading this as this is us considering recommending to introduce and refer it to the Planning Commission, which that makes me think it is going to come back to us.
Well, it will come back to us, but I'd like to, before we refer it to the Planning Commission, I'd like to know whether we really need to do this or whether we do have this legal authority, because I think the implication is that we may have lost that through some change in the statute, and we can find that out through the opinion.
All right.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Do we have a motion with regard to the closed session?
So moved.
Can you state it for the record, please?
Yes, move that we go to closed session for the purpose to discuss an attorney-client privilege memorandum that is exempt from disclosure pursuant to MCL 15.243, paren 1, paren lowercase g.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
It's a roll call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah, roll call vote, please.
Member Altman?
Yes.
Councilmember Meadows?
Yes.
Councilmember Watson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Singh?
Yes.
Mayor Brookover?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Altman. We're coming back out from a closed session. Do we have a motion with regard to the closed session?
I'll move to close or to return or adjourn the closed session.
And return to an open meeting?
Correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Do we need roll call, Tony? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Altman, second by?
Second.
Second by Singh. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, folks, for your time tonight.